"Please say you're my husband," begged the woman, crying, and the reason surprised everyone. Amanda Thompson walked down the hospital corridor like someone wandering through a nightmare they couldn't wake up from. The doctor's words echoed endlessly in her mind, each syllable piercing deeper into her chest. Experimental surgery. Authorization from immediate family. Only the spouse could sign. 3 years had passed since Michael left without a trace, and now this absence would cost Emily her life. Her legs trembled as she turned the corner and nearly collided with a man in a blue uniform. He was holding a broom and quickly stepped aside, apologizing politely. Amanda stared at him for a moment that seemed frozen in time. He was young, perhaps in his early 20s, with honest features and light eyes that showed surprise at this elegant woman who had suddenly appeared before him. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't see you coming," said the young man, adjusting his blue cap that matched his uniform. Amanda opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Tears began streaming down her face uncontrollably. The employee took a step back, clearly uncomfortable with this reaction. He looked around, searching for help, but the corridor was empty at that morning hour. "Are you all right, ma'am? Should I call someone?" he asked, genuinely concerned. That's when something inside Amanda completely broke. She fell to her knees on the cold hospital floor, her hands reaching for his, with a desperation that came from beyond reason. The young man dropped his broom, frightened, not knowing what to do, while this stranger held his hands as if they were the only solid thing in a collapsing world. "Please," Amanda whispered, her voice choked. "Please, I need your help." "Hey, calm down. I'll get someone, let me—" "No," she interrupted, squeezing his hands tighter. "I need you. I need you to say you're my husband." The silence that followed was absolute. The young man blinked several times, as if unsure he'd heard correctly. Amanda could see confusion growing on his face, mixed with concern and something that seemed like fear. "What? Ma'am, I think you're confused. Maybe it's better—" "My daughter is dying," Amanda said, and the words came out too fast, tumbling over each other in their urgency. "She's been in a coma for 3 weeks. She needs experimental surgery, but only the husband can authorize it. My husband left me 3 years ago. I don't know where he is. I have no way to find him. My daughter is going to— She's going to— Amanda couldn't finish the sentence. Sobs took over, shaking her shoulders as she remained kneeling in that empty corridor. The employee looked around again, clearly panicked, not knowing how to handle this impossible situation that had fallen into his lap this morning. Ma'am, this is very serious. This is very— You can't ask me this out of nowhere. I know." Amanda lifted her face to look at him. "I know what I'm asking. I know it's crazy. But she's my daughter. She's 16. She plays piano, dreams of studying music. I can't lose her." The young man swallowed dryly. Amanda could see conflict forming in those light eyes, the struggle between a good person's natural compassion and the absurdity of the situation. He opened his mouth to speak, but was interrupted by a nurse's voice appearing at the end of the corridor. "Is everything all right there?" the woman asked, approaching with quick steps. Amanda stood up abruptly, quickly wiping her face. The employee picked up his broom from the floor, his face showing the discomfort of the situation. The nurse looked at them suspiciously, but Amanda forced a smile. "Everything's fine, thank you. I just felt dizzy, but it's past now." The nurse didn't seem convinced, but nodded and continued on her way. As soon as she disappeared, Amanda turned her attention to the young man. She needed to convince him, but how? How to persuade a stranger to become part of such a huge lie? "What's your name?" she asked, trying to sound calmer. "Jason," he replied, still holding the broom as if it were a shield. "Jason Walker." "Jason, I'm Amanda. My daughter's name is Emily. She fainted during a music lesson 3 weeks ago. The doctors don't know exactly what's wrong with her, but they found a growth in her brain. The surgery could save her, but it's experimental and risky. The hospital only authorizes it if the spouse signs along with me." Jason took a deep breath, processing all of that. Amanda could see he was a good man, that this situation was tearing something inside him too. "I understand your pain, Mrs. Amanda. I really do. But what you're asking—" It's fraud. It could mean jail time. For me and for you. I have documents, Amanda said quickly. I have a friend who's a lawyer. He managed to prepare a marriage certificate. It's all done. You just need to say you're my husband, that's all. I'll take full responsibility. But it's not just saying it, Jason shook his head. They'll ask questions. They'll want to know details. What if they find out? They won't find out if you help me, Amanda took a step forward. Please, Jason. I've never asked anything like this from anyone in my life. But I'm begging now. I'm begging for my daughter. Jason's eyes filled with tears. He looked away, biting his lower lip. Amanda could see the war happening inside him and waited in silence, her heart beating so hard it seemed to want to leap out of her chest. If I do this, Jason said quietly, still not looking at her, if I agree, how long will it last? Just until the surgery is authorized, Amanda felt a spark of hope. After that you can leave. I'll never bother you again. I promise. Jason finally looked at her. There was pain in his gaze, but also determination. He knew he was about to do something that could change his life forever, but something stronger was speaking within him. Your daughter? You said she plays piano? Amanda nodded, confused by the question. I usually see a girl playing piano at Washington Square Park on weekends, Jason continued. She's really good, always gathers a crowd to watch. Long dark hair, wears those flowery dresses. That's her, Amanda whispered, hardly able to believe it. That's my Emily. Jason closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, there was determination in them. I'll help you. Amanda almost fell again, but this time from relief. She held Jason's hands once more, but now it was pure gratitude flowing through that touch. Thank you, she said, her voice breaking. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But you need to tell me everything, Jason said, serious. If I'm going to pretend to be your husband, I need to know about your life, about your daughter, about everything. Otherwise they'll find out with the first question. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Amanda nodded vigorously. She looked around the empty hallway and then pointed to a deserted waiting room nearby. Let's talk there. I have 3 hours until the meeting with the medical team. I need to prepare you. They sat side by side in that small room, and Amanda began to tell her story. She talked about how she met Michael at a wedding 15 years ago, about how he was charismatic and funny, about how she fell in love thinking she had found the man of her life. She told about Emily's pregnancy, about the first years that seemed like a dream, about the house they bought in the Upper West Side neighborhood. But gradually things changed, Amanda continued, her voice growing softer. Michael started traveling a lot for work. He'd be gone for weeks. When he was home, he seemed distant. We argued over everything. Emily grew up seeing that, and I hate myself for it. Jason listened in silence, absorbing every detail. Amanda explained about the day when Michael simply didn't return from a trip. There was no note, no explanation, just a silence that stretched day after day until she understood he wouldn't come back. Were you officially married? Jason asked. Yes, civil and religious marriage, everything proper. Then you can't remarry. The documents your friend made, they're fake, Amanda admitted. They show a retroactive domestic partnership. They say we got married 2 years ago, after I separated. It's risky, I know, but it's the only chance. Jason ran his hand over his face, clearly processing the gravity of it. Amanda took out her phone and showed him a photo. It was Emily playing piano in Washington Square Park, her face lit by the afternoon sun. A wide smile as her hands danced across the keys. She looked so happy there, Jason commented, and there was genuine sadness in his voice. She loved playing, Amanda said, and realized too late she'd used the verb in past tense. She quickly corrected herself. She loves playing. She'll play again. She needs to. Jason handed back the phone and stayed silent for a moment. Then he started asking practical questions. Amanda's birthday date, favorite food, mother's name. Jason had an impressive memory and absorbed every piece of information like a sponge. Amanda also asked him questions. She needed to know the basics about his life, so it wouldn't seem like she didn't know her own husband. Jason said he was 28 years old, an only child. His parents had died in an accident when he was a teenager. He lived alone in a small apartment in Queens, had been working at the hospital for 3 years as part of the cleaning staff. Before that, he'd studied economics for 2 years in college, but had to drop out due to lack of money after losing his parents. Economics? Amanda was surprised. Why are you working in cleaning then? Jason shrugged, a gesture trying to appear casual but hiding old hurt. I needed money fast. College could wait, but I ended up discovering that… I don't know. I think I lost my taste for it. Now I just work, pay my bills, live one day at a time. Amanda saw something in that young man that she recognized in herself, the mark of abandonment, of loss, of life going on even when you don't want it to. Maybe that was why he'd agreed to help her. He understood what it was like to lose someone you love. Time passed too quickly. When Amanda checked her watch, there were only 20 minutes left until the meeting. She stood up, smoothing the beige dress she'd chosen that morning without imagining she'd live a day like this. Jason also stood up, adjusting his cap. "Ready?" she asked. "No," he answered honestly, "but let's do it anyway." They walked through the hospital corridors side by side. Amanda tried to appear calm, but her hands were trembling. Jason maintained a neutral expression, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. When they neared the meeting room, Amanda stopped and grabbed his arm. "Jason, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "Let's see if we can convince them first." The meeting room was small and cold, with a long table in the center and leather chairs around it. There were 3 people waiting. Amanda recognized Dr. Sarah Wilson, the neurologist in charge of Emily's case. She was a woman of about 30, pretty and stern, with black hair pulled into a tight bun. Beside her stood Dr. Richard, older and with a gentle appearance, and a woman Amanda didn't know, probably from the hospital administration. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Thompson," Dr. Sarah said, her voice formal and distant. "I see you've brought someone." "Good afternoon, doctor. This is Jason, my husband." Amanda watched the doctor's face closely as she said those words. For a brief second, she saw something pass through Sarah's eyes. Surprise, confusion. But the expression vanished so quickly that Amanda thought she had imagined it. "Your husband," Sarah repeated, her tone too neutral to be natural. "I didn't know you were married again." "It's recent," Amanda lied, keeping her voice steady. 2 years. Jason extended his hand to greet the doctors. He seemed surprisingly calm, only a slight tremor in his hands giving him away. When it was time to greet Dr. Sarah, something strange happened. The doctor stared at him, her eyes widening almost imperceptibly. "You," she began, but stopped herself. "Yes?" Jason kept his hand extended. Sarah shook his hand quickly and looked away. Amanda felt a knot in her stomach. There was something there, something she wasn't seeing. But it wasn't the time to worry about that. They needed to focus on Emily's surgery. "Let's sit down," Dr. Richard suggested, always cordial. Everyone took their seats. The woman from administration, who introduced herself as Jessica Miller, opened a folder with documents. Amanda felt cold sweat trickling down her back. It was now. Either it worked or everything would fall apart. "We need to see the marriage certificate," Jessica said, getting straight to the point. Amanda took the documents from her bag and handed them over, trying to control the trembling in her hands. Jessica examined them carefully, comparing signatures, checking stamps. Every second felt like an eternity. Jason remained still beside Amanda, only his fingers lightly drumming on the table revealing his nervousness. "Everything seems to be in order," Jessica finally said, passing the documents to Dr. Sarah. "Can you verify?" Sarah took the papers and studied them. Her face remained expressionless, but Amanda noticed how her eyes went from Jason to the documents and back to Jason. She was analyzing something, looking for something. Amanda felt panic beginning to form in her chest. "Marriage date 2 years ago," Sarah said aloud. "Common law union converted to marriage. Interesting." "Is there a problem, doctor?" Amanda tried to sound casual. "Not necessarily," Sarah replied. but her eyes said something else. "It's just that... Jason, right? Do you work here at the hospital?" Jason swallowed dryly but kept his tone of voice firm. "Yes, I do. On the cleaning staff." "For how long?" 3 years. "And you've been married for 2, Sarah continued. "So, you met while you were already working here?" "That's right." "How did you meet?" Amanda quickly intervened, following the script they had agreed upon. "We met at Washington Square Park. Jason always had lunch there, and I used to take Emily to play piano on weekends. We started talking." "Romantic," Sarah commented, but there was poison in that tone. "And why did you never mention being married, Mrs. Thompson? In all our conversations about Emily's case, you always spoke as if you were alone." Amanda felt the trap closing. She needed to think fast. "Because I'm still getting used to it," she said. "My first marriage ended traumatically. Emily also took a while to accept Jason. It's all still very new." "I see." Sarah didn't seem to believe a word. She turned to Jason. "And you, how do you feel about Emily's surgery?" Jason took a deep breath. Amanda could feel the tension radiating from him, but when he spoke, his voice was full of genuine emotion. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Really scared. But I know it's her only chance. And I love that girl. She deserves to live. She deserves to achieve her dreams." There was truth in those words, a truth that went beyond the lie they were telling. Amanda saw tears forming in Jason's eyes, and something inside her tightened. He truly cared. Even without knowing Emily personally, even though it was all a sham, he genuinely wanted her to live. Dr. Richard, who had remained silent until then, cleared his throat. "I think we can proceed with the surgery preparations. The documents are in order, and it's clear you both understand the risks involved." "I'd like to ask a few more questions," Sarah interjected, looking directly at Jason. "Alone, if possible, just to make sure we're all on the same page." Amanda's blood ran cold. She couldn't leave Jason alone with that woman. Something was wrong there, something Sarah knew or suspected. "I don't think that's necessary," Amanda said. "My husband has made his position clear." "It's protocol," Sarah insisted, and there was a challenge in her eyes. "We need to speak individually with both responsible parties. You will also be interviewed separately, Mrs. Thompson." There was no way to refuse without seeming suspicious. Amanda looked at Jason, trying to convey strength and apologies through her gaze. He nodded slightly, indicating he could handle it. "All right," Amanda agreed. "I'll wait outside." She stood up and left the room, each step feeling heavy as lead. When the door closed behind her, Amanda leaned against the corridor wall and tried to control her breathing. What did Sarah know? Why was she being so hostile? Inside the room, the silence was heavy. Dr. Richard and Jessica stood up, understanding they should leave the two alone. When the door closed, Jason and Sarah stared at each other across the table. "How long has it been, Jason?" Sarah finally said, her voice low and filled with emotion. Jason closed his eyes. So that was it. He had hoped she wouldn't recognize him. Years had passed. He had changed, gained weight. His beard was longer. But she recognized him anyway. 5 years, he answered, opening his eyes. 5 years, Sarah repeated, and there was hurt in those words. "You just disappeared, Jason. You didn't answer my calls. You didn't reply to messages. I thought something had happened to you." "Sarah, And now you show up here, married," she interrupted, her voice rising. "With one of my patients. Is this real or is this another one of your escapes?" Jason took a deep breath. He had to make a decision right then. He could tell Sarah the truth, beg for her help, or he could maintain the lie and face her anger. He thought of Emily, the girl playing piano in the park, the smile he had seen in that photo. "It's real," he lied, looking directly at her. "I fell in love with Amanda. She helped me get over all of that." Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "How convenient. And me? Didn't I matter? Didn't I love you? Didn't I try to help you when you were falling apart after your parents left?" "You tried," Jason admitted. "But you also judged me. You said I had no ambition when I dropped out of college. You said I was wasting my life. Because you were. Sarah slammed her hand on the table. You were brilliant, Jason. You could have been anything, and you chose to be this. This pays my rent, Jason retorted, feeling the old anger returning. This lets me sleep at night. Sorry I'm not the successful man you wanted me to be. The silence that followed was cruel. Sarah looked away, and Jason saw tears streaming down her face. Part of him wanted to get up, hug her, say he was so sorry for everything. But another part, the part that still held the pain of rejection, kept him seated. That woman, Sarah finally said. Amanda, do you really love her? Jason thought of the woman who had knelt before him in that hallway, begging for her daughter's life. He thought of the desperation in her eyes, the courage she had to ask something so absurd from a stranger. He thought of how in just a few hours she had told him more about her life than Sarah had asked in months of their relationship. Yes, he said, and realized there was a piece of truth in that lie. I love her. Sarah wiped her tears quickly, recomposing her professional mask. Then I'll authorize the surgery, she said, her voice firm again. For Emily. She deserves the chance to live. But know this, Jason. If you're lying, if this is all some kind of scam, I will find out, and I'll make sure you pay for it. It's not a scam, Jason lied once more. It's love, something you never really understood. The words were cruel, and he regretted them as soon as he said them, but it was too late. Sarah stood up, picked up the documents, and went to the door. Before leaving, she looked at him one last time. You've changed, she said softly. Harder. The Jason I knew would never be capable of being so cruel. People change, Sarah. You taught me that. She left without another word, leaving Jason alone in that cold room. He buried his face in his hands, trying to process what had just happened. Outside, Amanda saw Sarah leave the room and quickly approached. So? She asked anxiously. The surgery is authorized, Sarah said, walking right past her without stopping. Amanda entered the room and found Jason still seated, looking exhausted. She ran to him and held his hands. What happened? What did she say? Jason lifted his face to her, and Amanda saw so much pain in his eyes that her heart tightened. Nothing, he lied. She just wanted to make sure I was committed to the decision. And you said yes? I did. Jason took a deep breath. Amanda, I need you to know something. Dr. Sarah and I, we know each other. We dated a few years ago. Amanda felt the world spin around her. Of course there was a complication. Nothing could be simple in a situation like that. Does she know? Amanda whispered. About the lie? She suspects, Jason admitted. But she authorized the surgery anyway. I think she still cares. In her own way. Amanda let go of his hands and walked to the window. Outside, New York City kept its frantic pace, indifferent to the drama unfolding inside that hospital. She thought of Emily lying in that bed, connected to machines, trapped somewhere between life and what comes after. She thought of all the choices that had led her there. I put you in an impossible situation, she said, without turning around, with your ex-girlfriend. This is going to complicate things even more. It doesn't matter. Jason stood up and went to her. What matters is Emily. The rest we'll deal with later. Amanda finally turned to face him. There was something changing between them, something she couldn't name. Gratitude, yes, but also an unexpected connection. Two broken people finding strength in each other. When is the surgery? Jason asked. Jason, tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock. I'll be here, he promised. Jason, you don't have to... I'll be here, he repeated firmly. If I'm going to pretend to be her father, then I'm going to do it right. They left the room together and walked through the hallways to Emily's room. It was a small but well-equipped space with large windows that let the afternoon light in. The girl was lying in bed, her face pale and serene, dark hair spread across the pillow. Machines beeped softly around her, monitoring every beat of her heart. Jason stopped at the door, sudden hesitation taking over him. It was the first time he had seen her up close, that he was in the same space as her. She seemed different from the vibrant girl he saw playing piano in the park. Here she looked fragile, as if a gust of wind could carry her away. "You can come in," Amanda encouraged him. "She doesn't bite." Jason took slow steps toward the bed. Up close, he could see that Emily had delicate features, a small nose, slightly rounded cheeks. Her hands were on the sheet, long, slender fingers, a pianist's hands. There was an ugly purple mark on her arm where the catheter was inserted. "Hi, Em," Amanda said softly, taking her daughter's hand. "I brought someone to meet you. This is Jason. He's going to help us." Jason didn't know what to do. He felt like an intruder in that intimate moment between mother and daughter. But Amanda looked at him expectantly, so he moved closer and hesitantly, lightly touched Emily's free hand. "Hi, Emily," he said, feeling ridiculous. I see you play in the park sometimes. You're very talented." There was no response, of course, just the steady sound of the machines and the girl's soft breathing. Jason was about to pull his hand away when he felt something. It was almost imperceptible, but he would have sworn Emily's fingers moved. Just a little, but they moved. "Did you feel that?" he asked Amanda, excitement in his voice. Amanda was already calling the nurse. A young woman in a pink uniform quickly entered the room, checked the monitors, examined Emily. She asked them to step out while she called Dr. Sarah. Jason and Amanda waited in the hallway, their hearts racing. Was Emily waking up? Could it be possible? Minutes later, Sarah came out of the room, her professional expression revealing nothing. "There was a motor response," she explained. "It's a good sign, but it doesn't necessarily mean she's waking up. The brain can have moments of activity like this during a coma, but I'll order some additional tests before the surgery tomorrow, just to make sure we're making the right decision." "And if she is waking up?" Amanda asked, hope overflowing in her voice. "Does she still need the surgery?" "The mass is still there," Sarah said gently, "and it's growing. Even if she wakes up, the surgery is still necessary." Amanda nodded, hope mixing with fear. Jason put a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of support. Sarah watched them, something unidentifiable crossing her face. "I'll let you say your goodbyes for today," she said. "Tomorrow will be a long day. I suggest you get some rest." She left, leaving them alone again. Amanda went into Emily's room one more time, straightened her blanket, kissed her forehead. Jason stayed at the door, respecting that moment. "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" Amanda asked when they came out. "I mean, they might ask about where we live together." "I have my apartment," Jason said. "But you're right. It would be suspicious if we didn't know each other's address. Where do you live?" "Upper West Side, West 72nd Street, 847, apartment 42. Jason memorized the address. He also gave his to her. It was strange, sharing such personal information with someone who was practically a stranger. "I need to go," Jason said. "My shift ended an hour ago. They'll start asking where I am." "Of course, sorry for taking so much of your time." "Amanda," Jason waited for her to look at him. "You don't have to keep apologizing. I chose to help. No one forced me." Amanda smiled, a small but genuine smile, the first in weeks. "I'll see you tomorrow then. 7 o'clock? I'll be here." Jason walked away down the hallway, and Amanda watched him disappear around the corner. She remained there for another moment, processing everything that had happened on that impossible day. So he went back to Emily's room, pulled the uncomfortable chair closer to the bed, and prepared for another sleepless night, watching his daughter's every breath. In his small apartment in Queens, Jason took a long shower, trying to wash away the day's tension. He stared at the dark ceiling for hours, unable to sleep, thinking about Emily, Amanda, Sarah, about how his life had become complicated in a matter of hours, about how he had lied to his ex-girlfriend, had agreed to participate in a fraud, had put himself at risk of being arrested. And yet, when he thought of Amanda's face kneeling in that hallway, begging for help, he knew he would do it all again. The morning arrived gray and cold. Jason woke up to his cell phone alarm at 5:30, made strong coffee, put on his best formal clothes, the same ones he had worn at his college graduation years ago. He looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at him. He was no longer the broken boy Sarah had left. He was no longer the invisible cleaning employee. At that moment, he needed to be Jason Walker, Amanda Thompson's husband, Emily's stepfather, a man willing to do whatever was necessary for his family, even if that family was a lie. He arrived at the hospital at 6:30. Amanda was already there, sitting in the waiting room with a cup of cold coffee in her hands. She wore a dark blue dress and had light makeup on her face, but she couldn't hide the deep dark circles under her eyes. When she saw him, she stood up quickly. "You came," she said, and there was genuine relief in her voice. "I said I would." They sat side by side in anxious silence. Other patients and family members came and went, each carrying their own burden of worry. Jason watched Amanda out of the corner of his eye. She was trembling, even in the stuffy heat of the room. Without thinking much, he took her hand and held it. Amanda looked at him, surprised, but didn't pull her hand back. Instead, her fingers intertwined with his, holding on tightly. "I'm scared," she whispered. "What if it goes wrong? What if I lose her?" "It won't go wrong," Jason said, wishing he believed his own words. "Emily is strong. She'll make it." At 7 o'clock sharp, a nurse came to get them. It was time to take Emily to the surgical center. They were allowed to accompany her to the operating room doors. Emily was still unconscious, unaware of the commotion around her, as doctors and nurses made final preparations. Amanda kissed her daughter's forehead repeatedly, whispering words of love and hope. When it was Jason's turn, he hesitated. He had no right to touch that girl, to pretend to be something he wasn't. But then he thought that maybe, just maybe, his presence there meant something. That perhaps the universe had put him in that hallway at that moment for a reason. He leaned in and kissed Emily's forehead gently. "See you on the other side," he whispered. The doors closed, taking Emily inside. Amanda collapsed against Jason, sobs shaking her body. He held her firmly, letting her cry, his own vision blurred by tears he didn't expect to feel. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. They were taken to another waiting room, smaller and more private, reserved for family members of surgery patients. Jason and Amanda sat on a worn-out sofa, the silence between them heavy with worry. The hours dragged on like molasses. A clock on the wall marked each second with an annoying tick-tock. Amanda couldn't stay still. She got up, walked around, sat down again. "How long did they say it would take?" she asked for the 10th time. "Between 4 and 6 hours," Jason answered patiently, "depending on what they find inside." Amanda nodded, but the information didn't calm her. Jason pulled out his phone and tried to distract her with conversations about mundane things. Where she grew up, what her favorite movies were if she liked to travel. It was strange having those conversations now, when they were supposedly married for 2 years, but it helped pass the time. Amanda said she had grown up in Miami Beach, that the ocean had always been her favorite place in the world. That she met Michael on a trip to New York City and fell in love with the big city as much as the man. That her dream had been to be a lawyer, but she got pregnant with Emily and decided to dedicate herself to motherhood. That sometimes she wondered how her life would have been if she had made different choices. "And you?" she asked. "If you could go back in time, would you change anything?" Jason thought for a long moment. "I don't think so," he finally said. "The bad things that happened, they brought me here, to you and Emily, so maybe everything has a purpose." It was a beautiful lie, but Amanda smiled, and Jason felt it had been worth it. The door opened and both jumped, but it was just another family being taken to wait. Another half-hour passed. Amanda rested her head on Jason's shoulder, too exhausted to keep her eyes open. He stayed still, not wanting to disturb her, his own weariness pulling his eyelids down. That's how Mrs. Barbara Thompson found the two when she entered the waiting room almost 3 hours later. The woman had graying hair cut in an elegant bob, wore an expensive beige suit, and carried a designer bag. Her eyes, the same dark brown as Amanda's, widened at the scene before her. "Amanda!" her voice echoed through the room. Amanda woke with a start, disoriented for a moment, before seeing her mother standing at the door. She stood up quickly, smoothing her dress. Mom, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? Mrs. Barbara approached, her voice loud and indignant. My granddaughter is in surgery, and you didn't even bother to tell me. I was going to call after... After what? After everything was over. Barbara shook her head in disapproval. Always the same with you, Amanda. Always thinking you can handle everything alone. Jason stood up, uncomfortable. Barbara noticed him for the first time, her eyes scanning him from head to toe with a critical look he knew well. It was the look of someone making quick judgments about his social class, his worth, his place in the world. "And who is this?" Barbara asked, as if Jason weren't there. "Mom, this is Jason. My husband." The silence that followed was deafening. Barbara blinked several times, her mouth opening and closing without making a sound. Finally, she found the words. "You're what?" "My husband," Amanda repeated, firmer this time. "We got married 2 years ago." 2 years, Barbara repeated, her voice becoming dangerously low. "You've been married for 2 years and didn't tell me? I was going to tell you, but..." "But what, Amanda? Were you waiting for the right moment?" Barbara was almost shouting now. "My daughter gets married and I'm not even invited to the wedding." Jason stepped forward, trying to calm the situation. "It was a small ceremony, Mrs. Barbara. Just the two of us. We didn't want anything elaborate." Barbara stared at him as if he had spoken in a foreign language. "And who are you to decide anything about my daughter? What do you do for work? Where are you from?" "I work here at the hospital." Jason kept his voice calm. "On the maintenance team." "Maintenance," Barbara repeated with disdain. Of course. Amanda always had a talent for choosing the wrong men." "Mom!" Amanda protested. "Don't give me that, Amanda. First that useless Michael who abandoned you, and now this. A janitor." "He's not a janitor. He works on the cleaning crew, and even if he were, what's the problem?" Amanda was turning red with anger. "Jason is a good man. He cares about me and Emily. Does that mean nothing to you?" "It means you keep making the same poor choices as always," Barbara shot back. "When will you learn, Amanda? When will you stop throwing yourself at the first man who comes along?" Jason felt anger boiling inside him, but forced himself to stay calm. This wasn't the time to fight. Emily was in the operating room. That was what mattered. "Mrs. Barbara, I understand your concern," he said, keeping his tone respectful. "But perhaps we could have this conversation another time. Amanda is very nervous about the surgery, and this isn't helping." Barbara completely ignored him, focusing her attention back on Amanda. "Why does Emily need this surgery? What happened? No one told me anything." Amanda took a deep breath, trying to pull herself together. "Em fainted 3 weeks ago during a music lesson. The doctors found a growth in her brain. Surgery is the only option." "And you didn't think I should know about this?" Tears began to stream down Barbara's face, her anger giving way to fear. "She's my granddaughter, Amanda. My only granddaughter." Barbara's voice broke on the last word, and suddenly she was no longer the authoritarian, critical woman. She was just a frightened grandmother, desperate for news about her granddaughter. Amanda moved closer and hesitantly hugged her mother. Barbara resisted for a moment before giving in, hugging her back. "I'm sorry, Mom," Amanda whispered. "I should have told you. I just was trying to process everything by myself first." They remained embraced for a long moment. Jason discreetly stepped away, giving them space. He went to the small window in the waiting room and looked out at the city. The sky was growing cloudy, threatening rain. "How much longer?" he heard Barbara ask. "Still a few hours," Amanda replied. "Do you want to sit? I'll get you a coffee." "I'll go," Jason offered. "How do you take it, Mrs. Barbara?" Barbara looked at him with suspicion, but answered, "Black, no sugar." Jason nodded and left the room. In the hallway, he allowed himself to lean against the wall for a moment and just breathe. This was getting more and more complicated. First Sarah, now the mother-in-law. How many other people were going to show up and question his story? He went to the hospital cafeteria and ordered 3 coffees. While waiting, he felt a presence beside him. It was Sarah. "Your mother-in-law arrived," she said without preamble. "How do you know?" This is a small hospital, Jason. Everyone knows everything. He picked up the coffees and turned to leave, but Sarah held his arm. She's not going to make it easy for you, Sarah said. Barbara Thompson is known to be difficult, especially with Amanda's partners. I've noticed that. Jason, Sarah hesitated. If all this is true, if you really love Amanda, then I wish you luck. You're going to need it. Jason stared at her, trying to understand what was behind those words. There was resentment there, yes, but also something else. Concern, longing. He couldn't decipher it. Thanks for the warning, was all he said before returning to the waiting room. When he entered, he found Amanda and Barbara sitting side by side on the sofa, talking in low voices. He handed them the coffees and sat in a chair across the room, giving them space. Barbara watched him with a calculating look, as if trying to solve an impossible puzzle. So, Jason, she said suddenly, tell me about yourself, your family, your plans for the future. Mum, not now, Amanda tried to intervene. Yes, now, Barbara insisted. If this man is part of the family, I have a right to know him better. Jason set his coffee aside and braced for the interrogation. He talked about his parents, about how they had passed away when he was young, about how that had changed the course of his life. He spoke about the college he had to drop out of, about the jobs he took to survive. And your plans, Barbara pressed. Are you going to stay in cleaning forever? I'm taking an online accounting course, Jason lied, improvising. In my spare time. I hope to get a better job soon. Barbara nodded, seeming slightly more satisfied. Amanda looked at Jason with surprise and gratitude. He was making an effort, trying to convince her mother. The hours continued to pass slowly. At 11 in the morning, Barbara started making calls, cancelling appointments, notifying friends. Jason realized she had a busy social schedule, being part of charity committees and social groups. She was clearly a woman used to being in control, having things her way. Noon came and went, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. The tension in the room was palpable. Amanda had stopped talking, just staring fixedly at the door, hoping it would open and bring news. Jason compulsively watched the clock, each minute feeling like an eternity. It was almost 2:30 in the afternoon when the door finally opened. It wasn't Sarah who entered, but Dr. Richard, still with his surgical cap on his head and mask hanging around his neck. Everyone stood up immediately, hearts in their throats. The surgery was successful, he said, and the words were like pure oxygen. We managed to remove the entire formation without significant damage to the surrounding brain tissue. Amanda began to cry, this time with relief. Barbara put her hand to her chest, murmuring thanks to God. Jason felt his knees weaken and had to lean against the wall. She's stable, Dr. Richard continued. She's been moved to the ICU for recovery. You can see her soon, but she's still sedated. It will take some time before we know if there's any neurological damage resulting from the surgery or the formation itself. But will she be okay? Amanda asked, her voice trembling. We have reason to be optimistic, the doctor said with a tired smile. Emily is strong. She fought throughout the surgery. He withdrew, promising to return with more updates soon. Amanda collapsed onto the couch, her body shaking with sobs of relief. Barbara sat beside her and hugged her, both crying together. Jason stood, watching the scene, feeling simultaneously part of and separate from that moment. Jason! Amanda reached out her hand to him. Come here. He approached hesitantly. Amanda pulled his hand and made him sit on the other side of her. We made it, she said, looking at him with red but shining eyes. She's going to be okay. Yes, Jason agreed, allowing himself to smile. She is. Half an hour later, they were allowed to see Emily. The ICU was a frightening place, full of machines and electronic sounds, nurses moving silently between beds. Emily was in a corner, surrounded by monitors, tubes coming out of her mouth and nose. A large bandage covered part of her head, where they had performed the surgery. Amanda approached the bed and held her daughter's hand, talking softly to her, even though she knew Emily couldn't hear her. Barbara stood on the other side, gently stroking her granddaughter's exposed hair. Jason remained at the foot of the bed, watching. It was strange to see Emily like that, so vulnerable and small. He thought of all the times he had seen her in the park, full of life and energy, her hands flying over the piano keys while a crowd gathered to watch. That girl deserved to live. She deserved to grow up, get married, have children, fulfill all her dreams. And he had helped give her that chance, even if through a lie. The nurse told them that Emily would be sedated for at least another 24 hours while her brain began to heal. They suggested they go home to rest, that there was no use staying there doing nothing. Barbara flatly refused to leave, insisting she would stay to watch over her granddaughter. Amanda also wanted to stay, but she was clearly exhausted, barely able to stand. "You need to eat something," Jason said gently, "and sleep. You won't be able to help Emily if you get sick." "But—" "He's right, Amanda," Barbara intervened, surprising them both. "Go home, take a shower, eat something. I'll stay here with Em. She'll call you if anything changes." Amanda looked from her mother to her daughter, clearly torn. Finally, she nodded. Jason guided her out of the ICU, a firm hand on her back. They walked silently to the parking lot, where Amanda's car was parked. "Do you want me to drive?" Jason offered. Amanda handed over the keys without argument. The drive to the Upper West Side was smooth, the New York City traffic surprisingly light for that time. When they reached the building, Jason parked but didn't turn off the engine. "Thank you," Amanda said, "for everything. For being there today. For dealing with my mother. For everything, really. You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. You saved my daughter, Jason. I'll never be able to repay you for that." "I don't want payment," Jason said. And it was true. "I just want Emily to be okay." Amanda studied him for a long moment, something shifting in her gaze. "Do you want to come up? Eat something? I know you must be exhausted too." Jason knew he should refuse. He had already done too much, gotten too involved, but he found himself nodding. "Sure." Amanda's apartment was spacious and well decorated, with large windows overlooking the city. There were photos everywhere, mostly of Emily at various ages. Jason looked at them while Amanda went to the kitchen. There was one of Emily as a baby, smiling toothlessly at the camera. Another at 5 years old, dressed as a princess. Several of the teenager playing piano at different events. "She's always been passionate about music," Amanda said, appearing with 2 plates of sandwiches, "since she was little. She started lessons at 6 and never stopped." They ate in silence, both realizing they hadn't eaten properly all day. Afterward, Amanda made fresh coffee and they sat in the living room, the city of New York, stretching out through the windows. "Tell me more about you," Amanda requested. "About your life, your relationship with Dr. Sarah." Jason hesitated. It wasn't a story he liked to tell, but after everything they had been through together, he owed it to her. "We met in college," he began. "She was in her 2nd year of medical school. I was in my 1st year of economics. It was love at first sight, you know, that intense youthful thing." Amanda nodded, encouraging him to continue. "We were together for 2 years. We were happy most of the time. But then my parents, they had an accident. Car. It was instant. At least that's what they told me. I was destroyed." "I'm so sorry," Amanda said softly. "Sarah tried to help me at first, but I was in a very dark place. I dropped out of college because I couldn't afford it anymore. I started working any job that came along just to survive. She said I was wasting my life, that I needed to go back to college, make something of myself." "She didn't understand," Amanda completed. "No. For her, success was everything. Status, money, career. I just wanted to survive each day. Eventually, she broke up with me, said I didn't have enough ambition, that she couldn't be with someone who was satisfied with being mediocre." Jason gave a bitter laugh. "The truth is, she was right. I was giving up. But at that time, giving up seemed like the only option I had." Amanda moved closer to him on the couch, her hand finding his. "You're not mediocre, Jason. What you did for me, for Emily, that's extraordinary. That's crazy," he corrected with a half-smile. "I could end up in jail for this." "You won't," Amanda said with conviction. "I won't let that happen." They sat like that for a while, hands intertwined, the fatigue of the day finally catching up to them. Jason felt his eyelids grow heavy, his head tilting to the side. He should leave, go back to his apartment, maintain the professional distance from the charade they were staging. But when Amanda rested her head on his shoulder, he found himself putting his arm around her, pulling her closer. It was wrong. All of it was wrong. But in that moment, feeling her warmth against him, it felt like the most right thing in the world. They fell asleep like that, on the couch, as the afternoon turned to evening, and New York City lit up its thousands of lights outside. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like, and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Jason woke to the sound of his phone ringing insistently. It took him a moment to get his bearings, realizing he was still in Amanda's apartment, the morning sun streaming through the windows. Amanda was curled up against him, still asleep. The phone kept ringing, and he answered it quickly so as not to wake her. Hello? Jason, it's Barbara. I need you here at the hospital. Now. His heart immediately raced. What happened? Is Emily okay? She's stable, but there's a problem, a big problem. Get here as fast as you can. The call ended before he could ask anything else. Jason shook Amanda gently. Amanda, wake up. Your mom called. We need to go to the hospital. Amanda shot up, her eyes wide with fear. What is it? What happened? I don't know. She just said to come right away. They got ready in record time. Amanda changed quickly, while Jason washed his face and tried to fix his hair. 20 minutes later, they were rushing through the hospital corridors, heading toward the ICU. They found Barbara outside, her face a mask of worry and something more. Anger? Where's Emily? Amanda asked, breathless. Is she okay? She's okay, Barbara said, but her voice was tense. But there's a problem. A man showed up here an hour ago, saying he's her father, saying he's your husband. The world stopped. Jason felt the blood drain from his face. Amanda turned as pale as a ghost. Michael, she whispered. He's inside with Emily now, Barbara continued, her voice hard, demanding explanations, demanding to know who the hell Jason is and why he's saying he's your husband. Jason and Amanda exchanged desperate looks. Everything was falling apart. Everything they had risked, the lie they had built so carefully, was about to blow up in their faces. Where is he? Amanda asked, her voice firm with determination. In the ICU. Sarah is trying to calm him down, but he's demanding to speak with you. Amanda took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Jason could see the transformation happening in her, the frightened mother giving way to something stronger, fiercer. Let's go, she said. Amanda, wait. Jason grabbed her arm. We need to think about this, decide what we're going to say. There's nothing to decide, Amanda said, staring at him. I'm going to tell the truth, that he abandoned me, that you helped us, that he has no right to show up here now making demands. She pulled away from Jason and marched toward the ICU. Jason and Barbara followed her, apprehensive. When they entered, they saw a man with his back to them standing beside Emily's bed. He was tall, with broad shoulders and dark hair starting to go grey. He wore an expensive suit and exuded confidence. When he turned at the sound of footsteps, Jason saw that he was handsome in a conventional way, with a strong jaw and piercing green eyes. Amanda, Michael said, and there were multiple emotions in his voice. Anger, hurt, something that almost seemed like relief. What are you doing here? Amanda asked, keeping her distance. What am I doing here? My daughter is in a coma, and you didn't think it necessary to tell me. I didn't know where you were. You disappeared, remember? I had my reasons. What reasons? Amanda took a step forward, her voice getting louder. What reasons justify abandoning your family without a word, without an explanation? Michael looked away, unable to face the accusation in her eyes. Sarah, who was in a corner of the room, watched everything with worried interest. Jason remained near the door, feeling like an intruder at that moment. Who told you about Emily? Amanda asked. Robert Davis. He works in the hospital administration. We're old friends from college. He called me yesterday saying my daughter was hospitalized, that she had been operated on. I took the first flight I could get. From where? Michael hesitated. From Los Angeles. I'm living in Los Angeles now. For 3 years, Amanda said, more to herself than to him. You were 2 hours away all this time and never... It wasn't that simple, Amanda. No? Then explain it to me. Explain how it was. Michael ran his hand over his face, tired. He looked at Emily lying in the bed, unaware of all the drama unfolding around her, and something in his face softened. She looks so small, he said quietly. Our baby is so grown up. You lost the right to call her yours 3 years ago, Amanda said coldly, when you decided not to come back home. Michael turned to face her again, and this time there were tears in his eyes. I was scared, Amanda, scared of not being a good father, a good husband. Every day seemed like a test I was failing. The bills piling up, you and Emily wanting more than I could give. I felt suffocated. So you ran away, Amanda finished, without thinking about us, without thinking about what it would do to your daughter. I thought about you every day, Michael said. But the more time passed, the harder it got to come back. How would I explain? How would you forgive me? You don't come back, Amanda said simply. That's the answer. You don't come back and you don't try, because you know you're too cowardly to face the damage you caused. The silence that followed was brutal. Michael opened his mouth to respond, but then his eyes landed on Jason for the first time. He studied him, confusion and then understanding crossing his face. Who are you? Michael asked. Jason took a step forward, forcing himself to keep an upright and confident posture. I'm Jason Walker, Amanda's husband. Michael let out a humorless laugh. Husband? Amanda, what's going on here? What's going on? Amanda said, moving to stand beside Jason. Is that I moved on with my life, something you should have had the decency to do officially through divorce. We never got divorced, Michael pointed out, which means you're still technically my wife. And technically you're still my husband, Amanda retorted, which means you could have authorized Emily's surgery. But since you were too busy playing hide-and-seek in Los Angeles, Jason stepped forward and did what you should have done. Michael looked between Amanda and Jason, his brain clearly processing the implications. You pretended to be married, he said slowly, to get authorization for the surgery. We did what was necessary to save our daughter, Amanda corrected. Our daughter, Michael repeated, not his, mine. Biologically, yes, Amanda said, but in every other way that matters, you stopped being her father a long time ago. Michael moved toward Amanda, anger flaring in his eyes. Jason moved instinctively, placing himself between them. Michael stared him down, sizing him up, and Jason saw the moment the other man decided he could take him in a fight. But before anything could happen, Sarah intervened. Gentlemen, please, she said firmly. This is an ICU. We have critical patients here. If you can't behave civilly, I'll have to ask everyone to leave. Michael stepped back, but his eyes never left Jason. I want a DNA test, he said. I want to prove that Emily is my daughter, and then I want to file for full custody. Amanda was stunned. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You enabled medical fraud, Amanda. You endangered Emily's life by involving this stranger in an elaborate scheme. A judge will never let her stay with you after this. I saved my daughter, Amanda nearly shouted. I did what I had to because you weren't here. But I'm here now, Michael said with a cold smile, and I'll make sure you pay for this. Jason saw Amanda start to crumble, 3 years of strength and determination finally breaking under the weight of it all. He caught her as her knees gave way, holding her steady. You're not taking Emily, Jason said, his voice low but full of conviction. I won't allow it. And what are you going to do to stop me? Michael laughed. You're nobody, a janitor pretending to be a father. When this comes out, you're going to jail, and Amanda will lose everything. Maybe, Jason admitted, but at least I was here. I was here when Emily needed someone. Where were you? Building a new life in Los Angeles? Pretending your first family didn't exist? Michael paled slightly. Jason saw he had hit a nerve. What are you talking about? Oh, I know what you did, Jason lied, improvising based on a hunch. "I know about the other woman, the other family. That's why you disappeared, isn't it? It wasn't fear or pressure. It was because you chose someone else." The silence that followed confirmed everything. Amanda looked at Michael with growing horror on her face. You have another family?" Michael didn't answer, but his expression said it all. Amanda pulled away from Jason and moved toward Michael, slap after slap hitting his face before anyone could stop her. "You coward, you liar!" she screamed as Sarah and Jason tried to restrain her. "You abandoned us for another woman. You have children with her, while your own daughter needed you." "Amanda, stop!" Barbara came running in, having heard the commotion from the hallway. "You're going to hurt yourself." Nurses appeared, drawn by the noise. Sarah managed to pull Amanda back while Jason positioned himself between her and Michael. Michael touched his face where the red marks from the slaps were forming, looking at Amanda with what might have been shame. "Get out," Sarah ordered. "All of you, now, or I'll call security." "I'm not going anywhere," Michael said. "I'm her father. I have a right to be here." "You have no right," Amanda yelled. "You gave up your rights when you left us." "That's not true and you know it," Michael shot back. "In the eyes of the law, I'm still her father. I'm still your husband, and I'll use both to make sure you never get near our daughter again." "Try," Amanda said, her voice becoming dangerously calm. "Go ahead and try. I'll tell every judge, every social worker, every person who will listen about how you abandoned us, about your other family, about how you only came back when you found out Emily was in the hospital. Let's see who the court thinks is more fit." Michael stared at her for a long moment, and Jason could see the war raging inside him. Pride versus fear. Right versus wrong. Finally, he stepped back. "This isn't over," he said. "Not yet." He walked out of the ICU, his footsteps echoing down the hallway. As soon as he was gone, Amanda collapsed. Jason and Barbara supported her, leading her outside as well. Sarah followed them, her face showing professional concern. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I couldn't stop him from coming in. He's technically her father." "I know," Amanda said, her voice breaking. "It's not your fault." They went to an empty consultation room. Amanda sat in a chair, her body trembling with suppressed sobs. Barbara was at her side, a hand on her shoulder, also visibly shaken. Jason stood by, feeling helpless. "Can he really do that?" Amanda asked after a while. "Take Emily away from me?" "I don't know," Barbara admitted. "But we'll fight. We'll get the best lawyer. I won't let that man destroy this family any further." "He has another family," Amanda said, more to herself. "All this time. And I thought he left because he didn't love us enough. But the truth is he just loved someone else more." Jason knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "Amanda, look at me. This isn't about you not being enough. This is about him being a coward, about him making selfish choices. None of this is your fault." "But it is," Amanda said, tears streaming down her face. "I should have seen the signs, should have realized what was happening. I could have divorced him officially, could have truly moved on, and then none of this would have happened." "If you had done that, you wouldn't have sought me out," Jason pointed out, "and Emily wouldn't have gotten the surgery in time." "But now you're at risk," Amanda said. "Michael is right. You could be arrested for fraud, and it's all because of me." "It was my choice," Jason said firmly. "No one forced me. I chose to help you. I chose to do this for Emily. And I don't regret it." Amanda looked at him through her tears, something shifting in her gaze. There was gratitude there, yes, but also something deeper, something neither of them was ready to name yet. The door opened and Sarah came in again. She looked tired, as if the last few days had weighed on her too. "Emily is starting to wake up," she announced. "The sedation is wearing off. In the next few hours, we'll have a better idea of how she is neurologically." "Can I see her?" Amanda stood up immediately. "You can, but only for a few minutes. She'll be confused. She might not recognize you right away." Amanda practically ran back to the ICU, with the others following. When they reached Emily's bedside, they could already see signs of movement. The girl's fingers twitched. Her head moved slightly from side to side. Amanda approached, taking her hand gently. My daughter. Can you hear me?" Emily groaned softly, her eyes beginning to open slowly. She blinked several times, trying to focus on something. Her gaze wandered around the room before landing on Amanda. "Mom!" Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. "I'm here, my love." Amanda was crying and smiling at the same time. "I'm here." Where am I?" "In the hospital. You had surgery, but you're okay now. You're going to be fine." Emily tried to sit up, but groaned in pain. Sarah quickly approached, checking the monitors, adjusting the bed's position. "Slowly, Emily. You just had major surgery. You need to rest." Emily looked at Sarah, then at Barbara. Then her eyes met Jason's. She studied him for a long moment, confusion evident on her face. "Who are you?" The words were like a punch to the gut. Amanda exchanged looks with Jason, uncertainty between them. How to explain? What to say? "This is Jason," Amanda began carefully. He's a friend. He's been helping us a lot." Emily kept looking at Jason, and then something passed over her face. Recognition. "I know you," she said slowly. You always come to watch me play piano in the park." Jason was surprised but nodded. "Yes, you're very talented." "Thank you." Emily gave a small smile before making a pained face. "My head hurts a lot." "I know, dear," Sarah said. "I'll adjust your pain medication. Try to rest now, okay?" Emily nodded and closed her eyes again, exhaustion pulling her back to sleep. Sarah made some adjustments to the IV medications and then turned to the others. "It's a good sign," she said. "She's responding well. Her memory seems intact. In the next 48 hours, we'll have a clearer picture of any potential damage." Amanda almost collapsed from relief again. Barbara supported her, both crying with happiness. Jason watched the scene, feeling simultaneously part of it and separate from it. Emily was waking up. She was going to be okay. That was what mattered. But Michael's threat still loomed over all of them. The charade they'd created was hanging by a thread, and Jason had no idea how they were going to get out of this. They returned to the waiting room, this time with a different atmosphere. There was hope mixed with worry. Emily was waking up, but Michael was determined to destroy everything. Barbara pulled out her phone and started making calls, looking for lawyers, asking for recommendations from acquaintances. "I have a friend," she said after several calls. "Daniel Stevens. He's one of the best family lawyers in New York City. He can see us tomorrow." "It won't help," Amanda said, exhausted. "Michael is right. We committed fraud. We lied to the hospital. Any judge will see that and rule against me." "Not if you tell your version first," a voice said from the door. Everyone turned to see Sarah there, holding a folder. "I came to bring Emily's surgery results," she said, entering. "But I heard you talking, and I have a suggestion." "What?" Amanda asked. "Tell everything," Sarah said. "Not to a judge, to me, officially. If you document everything that happened, all the reasons that led you to do what you did, I can testify as the doctor in charge of the case. I can explain the urgency, the need for immediate action." "But you authorized the surgery knowing it was fraud," Jason pointed out. "Won't that compromise you too?" Sarah looked at him, and there was something different in her eyes now. Understanding, perhaps, or respect. "I didn't know for sure," she said. "I had suspicions, yes. But you presented documents that seemed legitimate. As a doctor, my responsibility is to the patient's health, and Emily needed that surgery. I did what I thought was right." "Why are you doing this?" Amanda asked. "Helping us?" Sarah took a deep breath. Because despite everything, I know Jason is a good person, and if he believed in you enough to risk everything, then there must be a reason. Besides, I've seen how you are with Emily. A mother who does what you did, who risks everything for her daughter, doesn't deserve to lose her." There was a moment of heavy silence in the room. Then Amanda stood up and hugged Sarah, taking the doctor by surprise. "Thank you," Amanda whispered. "I don't know how to thank you." Sarah returned the hug awkwardly, clearly not used to such open displays of affection. When they separated, there were tears in both their eyes. "But this doesn't solve the Michael problem," Barbara pointed out. he can still cause trouble. "Let me deal with Michael," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see a man in the doorway. He was tall and well-dressed, with graying hair and a presence that commanded attention. Jason saw Amanda light up upon recognizing him. "Daniel!" She stood up quickly. "Hi, sis," the man said with a gentle smile, opening his arms. Amanda rushed to hug him. Daniel enveloped her in a protective embrace, kissing the top of her head. When they separated, he looked around the room, his calculating eyes absorbing every detail. "Mom called me," he explained. "She told me about Emily, about Michael showing up. I took the first flight from Washington, D.C. You didn't have to—" "Of course I had to," Daniel interrupted. "You're my sister. Emily is my niece. Did you think I'd just stand by while that coward tries to destroy you?" Jason watched the interaction, vaguely remembering Amanda mentioning an older brother. Daniel had a commanding presence, the kind of man used to being in charge. When his eyes landed on Jason, there was a silent interrogation there. "And you must be Jason," Daniel said, extending his hand. Jason shook it, feeling the other man's firm grip, the silent assessment happening. "Nice to meet you, sir." "Daniel is fine," he said. "And thank you for helping my sister. I know it wasn't easy." "He saved Emily," Amanda said, still holding her brother's arm. "I don't know what we would have done without him." Daniel nodded, something shifting in his expression. He pulled a chair and sat down, gesturing for everyone to do the same. "All right, let's talk about Michael," he said, getting straight to the point. "Amanda, is it true he has another family?" Jason said yes. And from Michael's reaction, it must be true. Daniel looked at Jason with renewed interest. "How did you find that out?" "It was a guess," Jason admitted, based on how he was acting, but he didn't deny it. "Interesting." Daniel pulled out his phone. "I'll put some investigators on this. If Michael really has another family, that changes everything. A man who abandoned one family to start another has no moral ground to question your decisions, Amanda." "But he still has legal ground," Amanda pointed out. "He's still technically my husband, Emily's father." "For now," Daniel said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "But we're going to change that. First, I'll file for immediate divorce on your behalf. Abandonment, lack of support, all documented. Second, I'll find out everything about this other family of his, where they live, with whom, if they have children, everything. And third, I'll make sure any custody request he makes gets buried under so many legal arguments he'll give up before it even gets to court." "But what about the fraud?" Amanda asked. "Jason and I lied to the hospital." Daniel looked at Sarah. "As the attending physician, will you testify that there was medical urgency?" "Yes," Sarah said without hesitation. "And the documents Amanda presented, were they created by a lawyer?" "By my friend Jeremy," Amanda confirmed. He was trying to help. Does this Jeremy have a license to practice law?" "Yes, but then technically he created legal documents based on a domestic partnership." Daniel was clearly thinking out loud. "Living together, sharing expenses, a provable relationship. Maybe it's not technically fraud if we can prove there was genuine intent to form a union." "But they don't live together," Barbara pointed out. "They don't share expenses." Yet, Daniel looked at Jason and Amanda. "But they could start. If you really want to sell this story, you need to make it real." The silence that followed was heavy. Jason and Amanda looked at each other, the implication of Daniel's words weighing on them. Was he suggesting they live together? That they actually pretend to be a couple? "No," Amanda said firmly. "I won't ask that of Jason. He's already done too much." "Amanda." "No. This has already gone too far. I won't turn his life into a complete lie just to save myself." Jason took her hand, making her look at him. "What if it's not a lie?" he said quietly. "What? What if we try to make it work?" Jason continued, hardly believing the words coming out of his mouth. "For real. Not as a lie, but as something real." Amanda stared at him, shocked. Barbara let out a small gasp. Daniel watched with interest. Sarah looked into the distance, something painful crossing her face. "Jason, you don't have to do this," Amanda said. "You don't need to sacrifice your life for us." What if it's not a sacrifice? Jason asked. Amanda, these past few days, I felt more alive than I have in years. Yes, it was chaotic and scary, but it was also meaningful. I mattered. What I did mattered. And you see me, really see me. Not as the unambitious janitor that Sarah looked down on, not as the broken boy who lost his parents. You see me as I am. You barely know me, Amanda whispered, tears forming in her eyes. I know, Jason admitted, but I want to. I want to find out who you are when you're not in crisis mode. I want to see you laugh, see what your favorite breakfast is, know which movie makes you cry. And I want to know Emily when she's not in a hospital bed. I want to hear her play the piano for real, not just in the park. I want to try. Amanda was crying openly now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of hope mixed with fear, of possibility mixed with uncertainty. What if it doesn't work? She asked. Then it doesn't, Jason shrugged. But at least we tried. And Emily stays with you, where she belongs. Daniel cleared his throat uncomfortably, clearly moved by the scene he was witnessing. Well, he said, this solves a lot of our legal problems. If you two actually try a relationship, it strengthens our case a lot. It shows it wasn't premeditated fraud, but rather two people trying to make the best of an impossible situation and discovering genuine feelings for each other. That sounds calculating, Amanda said. Welcome to family law, Daniel replied with a cynical smile, but it doesn't have to be just that. If the feelings are real, then it's just speeding up what was already happening. Jason and Amanda continued looking at each other, the world around them seeming to disappear. There was something there, something that had started in that hallway when a desperate woman had knelt before a stranger. Something that had grown through hours of anxiety, shared confessions, mutual support. Was it love? Not yet. But it could be. Okay, Amanda finally said. Let's try. Jason smiled, a genuine, wide smile, the first she had seen from him. He looked years younger like this, the sadness and tiredness momentarily disappearing from his face. But with conditions, Amanda added quickly. Nothing is forced. If at any point you want to walk away, you can. No guilt, no resentment. And we take it slow, nothing rushed. I agree, Jason said. Great. Daniel stood up, clearly satisfied. Now let's get this on paper. Jason, I'll need all your documents. Income statements, residential history, everything. Amanda, you too. We'll create a solid timeline of how you met and developed a relationship. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Emily continued improving, each day showing more signs of being the same girl as before. She stayed awake for longer periods, talked with Amanda and Barbara, even made some jokes that showed her sense of humor was intact. Jason visited her daily, always bringing something small, a flower, a chocolate, a book. Gradually, Emily began to get more comfortable with him, even asking him to stay and talk with her about music and her other interests. Michael tried to visit a few more times, but Daniel had obtained a temporary order restricting his visits until the case was reviewed by a judge. He wasn't happy, but had no choice but to comply. The investigators Daniel hired worked day and night, and in less than a week had a complete dossier on Michael's secret life. He did indeed have another family. A wife seemingly nice now and 2 young children. He lived in an upscale neighborhood of Los Angeles, worked at a consulting firm. He had built a completely new life, as if Amanda and Emily had never existed. When confronted with the evidence, Michael had no choice but to admit everything. Daniel used this information mercilessly. He threatened to expose everything publicly, ruin Michael's reputation in Los Angeles, unless he signed the divorce papers and gave up any claim to Emily. Cornered, Michael agreed. He signed everything put in front of him, only making Daniel promise that his new family would never find out about the old one. Coward to the end, Amanda said, when Daniel told her. She felt no triumph, just an empty sadness for the man she once loved and who turned out to be so completely broken. Meanwhile, Jason and Amanda began to navigate their new relationship. He spent every day at the hospital, usually showing up after his work shift. They talked for hours, discovering little things about each other. Amanda found out that Jason loved reading science fiction, that he made the best chocolate cake she had ever tasted, that he had a hidden talent for imitating cartoon voices that made Emily laugh. Jason discovered that Amanda was unable to wake up in the morning without at least 2 cups of coffee, that she dreamed of traveling to Paris someday, that when she was nervous, she made a little movement with her nose that was adorable. He also discovered that she was incredibly strong, having raised Emily alone for 3 years while working part-time as a proofreader from home. 3 weeks after the surgery, Emily was discharged. The doctors were amazed by her recovery. There was no detectable neurological damage. She could probably return to playing the piano in a few months after physical therapy and follow-up. Amanda cried when they left the hospital, but this time they were tears of pure happiness. Jason helped take Emily home, carrying her things while Amanda supported her daughter. When they entered the apartment, Emily went straight to the piano in the corner of the living room. She sat on the bench, looking at the keys with longing. "The doctors said you need to wait a little longer," Amanda gently reminded. "I know," Emily said. I missed it. The sound, the touch, how it makes me feel complete." Jason understood that feeling perfectly. He too had felt incomplete for years, just going through the motions of life without really living it. Until that day in the hallway when everything changed. In the weeks that followed, Jason began spending more time at Amanda's apartment. At first, it was just visits after work, having dinner together, helping Emily with physical therapy. But gradually he started leaving things there, a change of clothes, toiletries, books, until one day he realized he was spending more nights there than at his own apartment. "Maybe you should just move in for good," Amanda suggested one evening, while they were in the kitchen washing the dinner dishes. Jason stopped, his hands immersed in the sink water. "Are you sure?" "No," Amanda admitted with a laugh. "But I think it's time to stop pretending you're not practically living here already. And Emily, is she okay with this? Why don't you ask her?" They went to the living room where Emily was curled up on the sofa, watching TV. When Jason sat beside her, she paused the show. He began, suddenly nervous. "Your mom and I were talking and, well, I've been here a lot lately, and we were thinking, if you're comfortable with it, maybe I could, officially move in?" Emily looked at him with those dark brown eyes that were so much like Amanda's. Jason could see she was processing, weighing things. "Are you going to be like my stepdad?" she asked. "If you want," Jason said. "But I don't need a title, I can just be Jason, someone who cares very much about you and your mum." Emily thought for another moment, then shrugged in a characteristically teenage way. "Okay, but you can't touch my sheet music, and you need to learn how to make that chocolate cake when I ask." Jason laughed, relief flooding through him. "Deal." Then Emily did something that caught him completely by surprise. She leaned in and hugged him, a quick but genuine hug. When she pulled away, there was a small smile on her face. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. My mum told me what you did, how you helped. I don't know if I'd still be here if it weren't for you." Jason felt his throat tighten with emotion. He looked at Amanda standing in the kitchen doorway, tears streaming down her face, smiling through them. In that moment, Jason knew he had made the right choice, all the right choices. The move happened the following weekend. Jason didn't have many things, having lived minimally for years. A few boxes of books, clothes, basic kitchen utensils. Daniel showed up with a borrowed van to help, along with a few friends Jason had made at the hospital over the years. It was a quick and easy move, full of laughter and jokes. "Welcome to the family officially," Daniel said, patting Jason on the back when they finished. "Take good care of them." "I will," Jason promised. In the following months, they found a rhythm. Jason kept his job at the hospital, but also started studying accounting seriously. Not just the lie he had told Barbara. Amanda encouraged him, helped with his studies in the evenings, believed in him in a way no one else had. Emily went back to her classes and started intensive physical therapy. Slowly, she regained the strength and coordination needed to play again. The first day she managed to play a full piece on the piano again was a day of celebration. Jason and Amanda sat on the couch, watching with tears in their eyes as Emily played a piece by Chopin, her hands dancing across the keys with the same grace as before. When she finished, everyone applauded, and Emily turned around with the biggest smile they had ever seen on her. "I did it," she said, amazed. "I really did it." "Of course you did," Amanda said, hugging her. "You're amazing, my daughter." Amanda and Michael's divorce was finalized 6 months after Emily's surgery. Michael didn't contest anything, eager to leave that chapter of his life behind. He sent a short text to Amanda afterward, apologizing in a way that seemed far too insufficient for the damage he had caused. Amanda didn't reply. There was nothing more to say. But that was only part of the story. Because while the divorce was being processed, something interesting was happening. The lie Jason and Amanda had created was becoming true. Their dinners together became more intimate. Their late-night conversations became deeper. The casual touch of hands became intentional. It was one night, almost 8 months after the day they met, that everything changed. Emily was sleeping over at a friend's house, staying the night there for the first time since her surgery. Jason and Amanda were alone in the apartment, a rare occurrence. They had cooked dinner together, drunk wine, talked about everything and nothing. Now they were sitting on the couch, the city of New York City glowing through the windows. Amanda was leaning against Jason, her head on his shoulder. He was playing with her fingers absently, tracing patterns on her palm. "Jason," Amanda said softly. What are we doing?" He understood what she was really asking. They had moved in together, were living as a family, but still hadn't really defined what they were to each other. "I don't know," he admitted. "What do you want us to be doing?" Amanda sat up, turning to face him. There was vulnerability in her eyes, but also determination. "I want this to be real," she said. "I don't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to say we're together just because of the legal situation. I want to be with you because I choose you. Because at some point during these months I fell in love with you." Jason felt like he couldn't breathe. She had just said, she had. "Amanda, I know it's complicated," she continued quickly. "I know we started everything wrong based on a lie, and if you don't feel the same, I understand. We can continue as we are, as friends, as—" Jason silenced her by placing his hands on the sides of her face and pulling her into a kiss. It was soft at first, hesitant, years of loneliness and pain being washed away in that single moment. Amanda responded immediately, her hands going to his hair, the kiss deepening. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Jason rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed. "I fell in love with you too," he whispered. "I don't know when exactly it happened. Maybe that first day when you knelt in front of me and begged me. Maybe when I saw you with Emily for the first time, the way you love her with such fierceness. Maybe it built up gradually in all the little moments we shared. But yes, I love you." Amanda began to cry, but this time they were tears of pure joy. Jason kissed them away, one by one, before capturing her lips again. They stayed like that for a long time, embraced on the couch, rediscovering each other not as co-conspirators in a necessary lie, but as two people choosing to be together. The months turned into a year. Emily thrived, returning to performing at events, even giving some small concerts. She was accepted into a prestigious music school to study the following year, her dreams becoming reality. Her relationship with Jason grew too. She started calling him Dad at times, and Jason never corrected her, his heart swelling each time she did. Amanda and Jason got married in a small ceremony at the Botanical Garden, where Emily used to have music lessons. It was intimate and perfect, with only close family and friends present. Barbara cried throughout the ceremony, having finally fully accepted Jason as part of the family. Daniel was the best man, giving an emotional speech about second chances and love that arises from the most unlikely situations. Even Sarah showed up, bringing a gift and kind words. She had found her own path, engaged to a fellow doctor, finally at peace with how things had ended with Jason. "I'm happy for you," she told Jason when they had a moment alone. "You deserve this, and Amanda, and she truly sees you. In a way I never did." "Thank you, Sarah," Jason said sincerely. "And I'm happy for you, too." They hugged, two old friends finally leaving the past behind. During the reception, Emily surprised everyone by playing a piece she had composed, especially for the occasion. It was beautiful and moving, full of emotion. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Amanda and Jason went to her, the three of them embracing, a family not formed by blood or by lies, but by choice and love. "Thank you," Emily whispered, arms around both of them, "for giving me a real family." The years that followed were filled with the normal ups and downs of any family. Emily went to music school, then to the conservatory. She had her first boyfriend, her first heartbreak, her first victories and defeats. Through it all, Jason and Amanda were there, supporting her. Jason finished his accounting course and got a better job, eventually opening his own small consulting office. Amanda went back to studying, finally pursuing her old dream of becoming a lawyer, but this time focusing on family law, wanting to help other people in desperate situations like the one she had been in. Barbara became a present and loving grandmother, often showing up with food and stories of her social activities. Daniel visited whenever he could from Washington, D.C., bringing over-the-top gifts and unsolicited but well-meaning advice. 5 years after that fateful day in the hospital corridor, Amanda and Jason were sitting in an audience, watching Emily give her first professional solo concert. The girl they had almost lost was on stage, beautiful in a formal gown, playing with a passion and skill that left the audience amazed. Jason held Amanda's hand, squeezing it gently. She looked at him and smiled, that smile that still made his heart skip a beat even after years together. They said nothing. They didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said was in that touch, in that shared moment, in the life they had built together. When the concert ended and Emily received a standing ovation, she searched with her eyes in the audience until she found them. She smiled, her eyes shining, and made a small gesture just for them. A gesture of gratitude, of love, of recognition of everything they had been through to get there. After the concert, there was a small reception. People came to congratulate Emily, praising her talent, predicting a bright future. But after a while, she managed to get away from the crowd and find Jason and Amanda. "So?" she asked, nervous. "What did you think?" "You were perfect," Amanda said, hugging her. "So perfect." "Dad?" Emily looked at Jason, and the use of the word still warmed his heart every time. "You shone," he said honestly. "All those people there saw what I always knew, that you are extraordinary." Emily hugged them, the three staying like that for a long moment in the middle of that crowded room. A family that shouldn't exist, but that was more real than many traditional families. Later that night, when they returned home, Emily had already gone to sleep and Jason and Amanda were in the kitchen making tea. She turned to him suddenly. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Anything?" Jason thought carefully before answering. "I regret that we had to lie," he said. "I regret that we had to put Emily at risk with that surgery. I regret that you had to go through so much suffering with Michael." He paused, taking her hands. "But I don't regret helping you. I don't regret saying yes when you asked me. Because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't have you, I wouldn't have Emily, I wouldn't have this life. And this life, Amanda, is more than I ever imagined having." Amanda smiled through the tears that always seemed ready to fall when they had these moments. "I don't regret it either," she said. "Anything, not even the hard parts, because all of them brought me to you." They kissed there in the kitchen, lit only by the light above the stove, the taste of salty tears mixed with the sweetness of years of love built on a foundation of lies that turned into truth. Life went on. More years passed. Emily became a recognized pianist, giving concerts around the United States and eventually even internationally. She married a cellist she met at the conservatory, and they had a daughter who inherited the family's love for music. Jason and Amanda grew old together, their hair graying and wrinkles forming, but the love between them only deepening with time. They never forgot how it all began, That desperate moment in a hospital hallway that changed 3 lives forever. Sometimes when they visited Emily and her family, Jason still went to the hospital where it all started. He would walk down that hallway, now renovated and different, but still essentially the same. He wondered about the moments that change everything, about how the biggest changes sometimes come from the most desperate acts. One morning, almost 20 years after that first day, Jason woke up and found Amanda already awake, sitting in bed looking out the window. The sun was rising, painting the sky pink and gold. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, approaching and putting his arm around her. "I was thinking," Amanda said, "about how everything could have been different. If I had turned to the other side of the hallway that day, if I had chosen another employee, if you had said no." "But it wasn't different," Jason gently reminded her. "It was exactly as it was meant to be." "Do you really believe that?" Amanda asked. "That it was fate?" Jason thought for a moment. "I think I believe that we made choices," he said. "You chose to do whatever was necessary to save Emily. I chose to help. And afterward we chose each other every day since then. It wasn't fate, it was choice. And that's much more powerful." Amanda turned to face him, her brown eyes that he knew so well still able to make his heart race. "I love you," she said. "Today, tomorrow, always." "And I love you," Jason replied. "Forever." They kissed as the sun rose, a new day beginning like so many others had. A life built on the ashes of despair, on the courage to ask for help, on the kindness of a stranger who became family. Years later, when Emily was compiling family stories for her daughter, she always started with the same sentence. "It all began when my mother knelt before a stranger in a hospital hallway and asked for the impossible, and somehow miraculously he said yes." And it was true. That yes had changed everything. It had saved a life, created a family, proven that sometimes the best things come from the most unlikely decisions. Jason never regretted that yes, not once, because that yes hadn't just saved Emily. It had saved him too, pulling him from the darkness where he had been living for so long, showing that there was still purpose, still love, still reasons to believe in happy endings. And Amanda, who had started that day in the deepest despair, ended each day grateful for the courage she found to ask for help, for the luck of finding exactly the right person at that right moment. Because sometimes, in our darkest hours, we find not just salvation, but also love. And that love, born from despair and kindness, can be the strongest kind of all. End of story. And so, dear listener, what did you think of this story? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to make difficult decisions for someone you love? Do you believe Amanda and Jason made the right decisions? Leave your opinion in the comments with sincere words. Your stories and reflections are very important to us. Don't forget to leave your like, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one. Thank you very much for your company.